Let's start with the British political scene. I'm only half joking when I say that birds are already trying to nest in Sir Keir Starmer, the multi-millionaire former public prosecutor, Queen's Counsel, North London anti-Brexit man who's now been elected by a landslide as the new leader of the Labour Party. The first thing I need to say is, I told you so. I told you this was going to happen. I told you that not allowing Ian Lavery or Richard Burgon to run for leader of the Labour Party was a disastrous error. I told you that putting up a schoolgirl, Rebecca Long-Bailey, as the single left-wing candidate was a mistake of gargantuan proportions. I told you that if Keir Starmer got it, it would be the return of Tony Blair. This is Tony Blair 2.0. If you look at the shadow cabinet that is now emerging, I'll be getting the names, I hope, put on my desk in the course of the show. But if I just glance at the top line of who has been kicked out and who has been promoted, I can certainly say one thing. And that is that Keir Starmer is more decisive as a leader than Jeremy Corbyn ever was, unfortunately in the reverse direction. Jeremy Corbyn didn't purge anybody, even when they were sticking knives in his back. Instead of purging them, he promoted them. Jeremy Corbyn never booted anybody out. He promoted the people who hated him most. In fact, the people he booted out were his actual friends, his closest allies, people like Chris Williamson, the erstwhile Member of Parliament for Derby. No chance whatsoever of Keir Starmer making that mistake. He's following the John McTernan rules of punishing the loser. At the time of my coming on set, I've no idea if Rebecca Long-Bailey is going to be given anything at all in the shadow cabinet, but if she is, it's already clear it's going to be vanishingly, humiliatingly small beer. John Landsman, her campaign manager, and the luxury communists have already prostrated themselves at the feet of Sir Keir. Arise, they say, Sir Keir. Even NATO Trotskyite Paul Mason and pirouetting Nureyev, Owen Jones have slavishly adhered themselves to Sir Keir Starmer's backside. Question is, where is it headed? Is Keir Starmer capable of leading Labour back to power? That's in fact the context of our first poll. Will Sir Keir Starmer lead Labour to power? A, yes. B, no. I believe absolutely no, and for the following reasons. First of all, Sir Keir Starmer is a man who doesn't even speak the language of the millions of working class people who abandoned Labour on the Red Wall and behind the Red Wall, but also here in London. He doesn't even speak their language. He doesn't pretend to understand what they are talking about. He is a smug, cosmopolitan, upper class, exceedingly rich, fabulously educated elitist. He has nothing in common with the people that Labour need to win back. Secondly, he is literally the architect of the very policy which caused Labour's defenestration just last December. He is the man who insisted upon, more than anyone else, a people's vote, a second referendum, to force the 17.4 million Brexiteers to do it all again, no doubt in the teeth of a state-sponsored, billionaire-financed propaganda campaign in the hope that they would vote a different way the second time. Such contempt for democracy, such contempt for the decent, patriotic views of millions of people in this country renders him useless in actually winning people back. He'll no doubt be popular amongst the Guardianistas. Indeed, the Guardian's already wetting itself with delight at this new era. So is Tony Blair, so is Margaret Hodge, so is Wes Streeting, so is Jess Phillips, all the Chamber of Horrors who made Corbyn's life such a misery for the last 4.5 years. Their knees are knocking together with delight at the idea that Starmer has won so handsomely with 57% of the vote. Rebecca Long-Bailey limping in second with 27% of the vote. Yes, that's right. What a pick. What a pick by Landsman, by Momentum, by the left. And I'm not being wise after the event. I told them and I told you over and over again in real time this would happen. Just as I predicted the result of the general election, just as I predicted the result of the Brexit referendum, of Trump's election, and so on. I'm glad you're listening. We need to get more people to pay more attention. Now, talking of big palookas, what about Joe Biden? Have you ever seen anything more pitiful? He can scarcely say his name into the basement television camera that he's got rigged up in his isolation. He's demanding that the people in various states on Tuesday come out and vote in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic when they're not supposed to be within 2 meters of each other. He wants them to stand in a line, thousands long, in order to vote for him. But he also says that the Democrats will have to have a virtual convention just to save the problem of inconvenient uprisings amongst the Bernie Sanders supporters on the floor of the convention. I'll go out on a limb. I'm predicting that Joe Biden will not be the Democratic Party's candidate in November. He's not fit to be let out alone. Certainly not fit to be left babysitting your daughter, if you get my drift. He's not fit to fight Donald Trump. So at the last minute, there'll be a stand-in. Now, there are many possibilities. One of them is Hillary Clinton, but that's probably a bridge too far, a risk too far. Another, one that I identified earlier on, is the wife of President Obama, who does seem to have a good deal of popularity in the United States. Michelle Obama might be appointed as the vice presidential running mate of Joe Biden. Then Joe Biden's unable to actually go to the gig, and so she is elevated with someone else as VP. And these are possibilities. But I'm increasingly thinking, as I said last week, that Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, who's on television every single day and is doing a pretty impressive job, at least presentationally, of making his case for more resources, of condemning the federal government, and of fighting for the people of New York, which is, of course, the center, the epicenter of the American epidemic, which is the epicenter now of the world pandemic. The United States may very well, in a couple of weeks, have a higher level of unemployment, 25%, as they had in the Great Depression of the 1930s. Soup kitchens, tent cities, dust bowls, all the horrors of the Great Depression may well be back in the United States very, very soon indeed. In other words, there never was a better time for a radical candidate with authenticity and with a track record for decades of fighting for the kind of changes that America is going to need, an FDR plus New Deal. There's never been a better time for Bernie Sanders. But the Democrats would rather Donald Trump won than that Bernie Sanders should be their nominee. Does that sound familiar? Because, of course, the same is true here in Britain. There's never, ever, ever been a better time for Jeremy Corbyn to lead the Labour Party with a radical programme and a coruscating critique of Boris Johnson, who's looking ever more inept, bumbling, pitifully out of his depth. There's never been a better time for a radical Labour leader, so Labour chose a block of wood. We'll be talking, of course, about the coronavirus itself, what it's doing, and the world it's going to leave us. I myself am beginning to think that this is an epochal turn, that it will never be the same again after this. I know that can sound trite, it can sound also a trifle optimistic, but here's why I think so. Capitalism is actually the virus. If you think about it, what does the virus do? It parasitically attaches itself to the work being done by others. In this case, by your lungs and by your throat, your trachea, your ability to breathe, to keep a living organism alive. The parasite fixes itself to your cells and seeks to squeeze the life out of them. And it can only be a matter of time, I think it's days, it might be hours, before that parasite is spitting out and infecting others to go on and to exploit still more. The parasite, the virus, knows no borders and will not accept any democratic check upon its workings, its evil doings. The parasite, the virus, has only one purpose: to parasite some more and to continue to destroy as it goes along. And I think a lot of people are at least open to, and many, many millions have already concluded, that it was globalized capitalism with its long lines of supply, its austerity politics which broke disastrously our public services, not just, by the way, our health service, though, of course, that's the most obvious frontline casualty of globalized capitalism's determination to destroy all that is public and to make profit from anything it can get its hands on, including much-loved public services. But it isn't just the health service. 5 London bus drivers have died. Why? Because the London mayor is allowing people to pack onto a restricted number of buses unhealthily, all of them breathing their droplets at the driver of the bus, who doesn't even have a mask, not even a tiny little cloth mask like this. The driver is naked, metaphorically, in the front of the bus. There are fewer buses, so more people are on them. And 5 London bus drivers have lost their lives in the coronavirus epidemic so far. And I've no doubt, I know from one of my friends, John Larkin, that on Merseyside there are critical problems of safety in the public transport industry, with the total lack, I mean, lack's not the word, the total absence of personal protective equipment. They are more interested in a different kind of PPE, the kind studied by virtually all of the top line of Sir Keir Starmer's new shadow cabinet. But it isn't also just bus drivers. Let me let you in, I hope she doesn't mind, on a personal secret. My mother, aged almost 85, has help come in, supplied by the NHS and by the care departments in Scotland. They're very, very nice. One can't do enough for her. One is a nurse who helps her with various ailments that an 85-year-old almost routinely has, helps her on with her stockings and so on, and the others come and do a bit of cleaning. But my mother's just cancelled them. Yes, these wonderful ladies that come in to help her, she's told them, don't come, please, until after this emergency is over. Why? Because not a single one of the social care staff visiting my mother has as much as a rubber glove, has as much as a wee cloth mask to put on their face, or has been tested to see if they're taking the coronavirus round all the old people whose houses they are visiting and to whom they are attending most religiously. Now, only capitalism could produce a society like that. Atomized, devastated, privatized, where all that is public is profaned and all that is solid is not just melting into air, but being sold off in front of your very eyes. I'll have more to say on that when I come to nominate my candidate for the Wall of Shame later in this show.